I keep it. I actually wasn't even tripping. We on. That's how quick it happens. We in here. Cheers. This is gonna get it started. It's gonna get the combo extra spicy.
Uh-oh.
This I put a little, what is it? Cayenne, lemon, turmeric, and I put a little celery juice to give it a little, you know what I mean?
Give a little extra. Mm-hmm. Gotta swirl that around. All that cayenne sitting at the bottom.
Oh yeah. You better just shoot this one.
You about to have me choking a little bit? I got the water. Not that bad. Oh man,
that's that after shit. That's good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. All right. So what's going on beneath your ink?
It's a lot of ink, bestie.
Holy shit! That shit hit my throat.
Really? You being a little punk?
Nah.
A little bit.
I take shots of Henny easier than that one.
That other one you made, that
was pretty good.
A couple weeks ago, that one was spicier for sure.
Yeah.
This one had a cool little balance.
Mm-hmm. Because I put that celery in it.
Oh, you cut it out?
Yeah.
Made it.
Switch it up. But yeah, this is about it. Let me get in my position.
Oh, interviewer position.
Yeah, my intimate
position. Lean it back.
Yeah. I ain't gonna lie, I be looking kind of fat on them cameras though. I ain't gonna lie in this position, but it's all good.
It's about the angles. You gotta play with your angles.
Not my best angle.
You gotta play with your angles.
So what's going on with you?
You know, bestie?
Let's talk about it.
So, nearing the end of my 30s, right? And I think it's a very interesting time period. Just like
a lot of shifts.
Yeah, a lot of shifts.
Same here.
Like priorities, the things that matter to you, the things that don't really matter, that used to matter. And just like reprioritizing and, I don't know, just changing. Like you care more in important ways and less in the trivial ways.
Exactly. That's crazy you even brought that up because I'm literally going through the same stuff. I was telling that to a friend earlier. Like it gets real weird when you don't care about shit that you used to care about. Like when shit that you used to hold so high, it just don't hit the same. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of like, I don't want to say searching for what the next fulfilling thing is, or I don't know.
I think a lot of it is like a shift from external to internal, right? So I think that when we're growing up and when we're kids, we're taking in all of this information, seeking the external validation or these things to like create our status or create our sense of self-worth. And then you get older and you realize like none of that stuff matter. Like, okay,
at all.
Perfect example. So, I got a sneaker habit, right?
Yeah.
It's like tats, sneakers. You want to know where my extra money, fake extra in California, fake extra money goes?
Yeah, let's talk about that extra part.
It's fake extra.
Yeah.
But it usually goes to like tats or shoes. And like, I still love shoes. I do. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate a good looking sneaker for sure. Nice looking boot or whatever. Like to put it on, but it doesn't hit the same. It doesn't matter because I think that when I first got into really being big on collecting sneakers, it was like compensating for the sneakers I didn't have as a kid. So it was like retro started coming out. It's like, oh, I remember I couldn't get these, so I'm getting them now. But then I also realized like the older I get, the less I like clutter. So it's like I go through these phases where I'm like, okay, yeah, I like these, but it's too much stuff. Like, or recognize you got all these shoes, but you wear the same 2-3 pairs. Like
that clarity's peeking. Like, what am I really wearing? You feel me? What's really making sense?
Like all this stuff is just taking up space.
I like how you said. What did you just said something almost like when you get to the point where you can acquire that certain thing, it don't hit the same.
No.
I think that goes for like
everything.
Lot of stuff in life. It's like you try so hard to get to this point, and then when you get there, you be like, I mean, it's good, appreciate it for sure, but then it's like, now let's go on to the next. That goes for, I'll have a lot of that.
I mean, I think a lot of that stems from the whole idea that like most of us are operating under the space of the grass is always greener, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing somebody obtain a house or the cars or clothes or shoes or a certain relationship status or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you're constantly looking like, I can't wait till I get to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like there's a shift that happens when you start getting older and like things that really matter start happening. You start losing people close to you. You start
Mm-hmm.
watching like your kids grow up or your parents aging, and you're like, I don't know if that really matters as much as I thought it did.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the reality of it also is I'm looking at it from the outside. So it looks like the grass is green, but really it could be fake turf. It could be,
Mm-hmm.
that's just a little patch that I'm seeing and the whole rest of the yard is desolate. Like
Exactly. It's
it's
like the more glimpses you see of that too. I think that for myself, that's what that kind of led me to that realization is like that little peeking behind the curtain. Like when you do see, say you idolize somebody's relationship or their lifestyle or whatever, and then you hear them on the back end like, oh man, I need to borrow some money. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever it is, it's not what it was portrayed to be. Then you're like, hold on.
it takes the fantasy out of it.
Yeah. And once you
Because
lose the
you,
fantasy,
yeah,
it's,
like you have this idea, but I think that's step one, realizing that there's always more to the story than what you see in these
mm-hmm.
false idols that we create. I think the step two is also learning how to kind of mind your business and tend your own garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's for other people is for them. What's for me is for me. And that's what I need to focus on. Not saying that you shouldn't always be learning from the people that you surround yourself with and take bits and pieces. But I
Yeah.
think when you're younger, you're so stuck on this is what success looks like. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
would have asked me when I was a teenager, what does a successful adult look like? I would have been like, they got a nice car, they got a nice house, they got money. And, with this social media world where you're exposed to so
Let's
much
check it.
more, I'm like, the people with the most money are like messed up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong, when you don't have any money, you messed up too.
yeah, yeah.
But
It's that nice balance of that
it's
little.
it's completely different. Like even now when it's just like, okay, do you really want to be rich? Like even my perspective now is I just want to be able to buy my freedom.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to be crazy Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates rich.
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to be able to do something like, you know what, I hate this job. I quit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or
Even just to be in the moment, like the freedom to be in the moment and concentrate on what you're doing at that moment, not okay. I gotta hurry this up because I gotta go do this and I gotta run and do that. But just getting pulled in all these different
mm-hmm.
directions. I feel like my definition of success is like doing doing things, but like almost at your will a little bit. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Not feeling like you're
freedom.
forced. You know?
Like I feel like the ultimate success is freedom. If I say perfect example when you went and took your cross country road trip,
Mm-hmm.
that was
That
an
shit got
example of
crazy.
freedom to me because it's
Yeah.
like you literally were like, I think in 2 days I'm gonna drive out across the country
Mm-hmm.
and have the freedom to do so. Whereas like now, anytime anything comes up, a trip, a birthday, or whatever it is, I'm like, okay, I gotta check in the savings. And once we pass that filter, if they agree and they like, yeah, you could do something, then it's a time thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like when you're broke, you have a bunch of time on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to get to a better standing financially, you may have some more money, but you don't have the time. So for me, freedom is a space where you have both. Like
I
if I
like that.
said to you, I want to fly to Fiji tomorrow, freedom to me is I could do that.
Mm.
It's not, oh, let me check and see,
Yeah, yeah.
or oh, if I do that, that the house bill or whatever not gonna happen. Like freedom to me is being able to fully, like you said, be present and then also have the ability to make your decisions at will without contingencies. Because adulting is ghetto.
Yeah.
Everything is like tied. It's like, okay, I may want to do this, but here's what I have to do.
Yeah. How much of this is like the contingencies that part, I guess, how much is that tied to like our relationships with people? Because that part kind of scares me too, as far as like getting in like relationships. Because even if you got the money and the time, and if you have a significant other or if you have some sort of ties, like you still gonna have to check with them. Um, that part gets tricky with me.
I think that when you're younger and you're hearing about relationships, a lot of us kind of grow up with this idea that a relationship is now a barrier.
Mm,
It's a cage of some sort. Like when I'm talking to my boys, usually that's what has them apprehensive about relationships because they feel it's a loss of freedom.
mm-hmm,
With my current relationship now, it's the opposite. Like I am freer and encouraged to think freer and be freer because of my relationship.
mm,
When it's like, oh, I want to do this, it's not, oh, you can't do X, Y, and Z. It's, babe, let's figure that out. Let's
mm-hmm.
make it happen.
Teammate shit.
So, I mean, I think that you define the terms of your relationship and whether it becomes a prison to you. And, different strokes for different folks. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as where I'm sitting, it's freeing and it's expanding me as a person. My perceptions, my ideas, even just my willingness to like try to learn how to dream. Because
Mm,
I think for a long time, I have just purely operated out of that like obligatory space that I got this many bills,
mm-hmm.
this much money, this much time. Now we got to figure it out. And I think that my relationship, not just, with my wife, but with friends too, and people that I'm now learning and surrounding myself with and expanding my network into, challenge me to look at another way, challenge me to think about things from instead of getting really great at making the best out of shitty situations, how about you get really great at creating amazing situations and
Mm,
creating that shift?
mm-hmm. It definitely seems more of a better use of like energy for sure. That way.
When you know, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
when you don't know any better and you're
Mm-hmm.
just kind of operating out of a sense of survival.
Yeah. How much? Okay, so that hella sounds good. But how much of this is like? Because some people, I see a lot of people operating, especially like even for sure myself at times, get caught up in I don't know, almost like a herd mentality. Like even things as simple as like this concept we're talking about is just kind of like to me, I feel like some people would be like, man, what are they talking about? Like, just go to work. You know what I mean? Like, it's so programmed and ingrained in our culture to just kind of what is it, live to work or whatever. Like, just like trying to get by and maintain certain appearances and stuff like that. Like anything else is almost like not even fathomable. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think that is? Just like a herd mentality, or
I think that that just comes from ignorance. You
yeah, just
don't
not
you
knowing.
don't you don't know what you don't know. Like
Yeah.
in my career, I never see anybody in any room that I'm in that looks like me
Mm.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so much of my career was built off of finding and creating a space. There wasn't like, okay, you see a doctor and you're like, okay, cool, you went to med school, you may talk to them and figure out what steps they took. But because my career wasn't like a traditional immigrant family career, doctor, lawyer, nurse,
Mm-hmm.
failure to the family, it's a
Mm.
running joke. I had to figure it out. So it had to be, I had to proactively seek additional knowledge. Like, okay, I have these skills. And one of my biggest strengths is my curiosity and my ability to constantly be learning.
Mm. That's a
So it was
good one.
like, nobody was like, okay, here, you should learn SQL, you should learn HTML, you should learn, here are some courses you should take, here are some people you should reach out to. It wasn't any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you also got to remember when I started, it's not like LinkedIn was super big and you could connect with strangers in a network via that social vehicle.
Yeah.
The very first company that I was working for out of college didn't even really have like a huge internet presence. Like a majority of their revenue was generated from a catalog and stores.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so I've grown up in that space, in the technology space. But I think that if you don't have that mentality to expand and like challenge your perceptions and what you're exposed to, then all you know is all you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there are different categorizations of people who don't even have an interest in knowing like what's outside of that. It's like, no, this is what it is. Like when you talk to some people who are like, I've never even left Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That is a trip.
like
Being
you've
around
been in
people like
East
that.
Oakland all 40 years of your life. You've never even gone to San Francisco.
Yeah, yeah. That's a
And
real thing too. That's
it's a real
wild.
thing and it sounds crazy, right?
Yeah,
Like when
yeah.
you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you start exposing yourself to different areas or you travel or you do whatever, Oakland seems small. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you didn't want to take that 30-minute drive or hop on BART and like go see
Yeah,
something different?
yeah,
Or even like people who haven't even seen different parts of Oakland. Like you
yeah.
literally haven't even left.
Do you think there's like like a fear aspect with that? When I hear stuff like that, I literally just think of like that cruise movie with a little, you know what I'm saying, where the dad didn't want to leave the cave, and they're all like, just don't go on, don't stay up after dark, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. I think there's parts of humans that's ingrained in some people. You know what I mean? Because even if they did go to San Francisco or whatever, like never even getting on a plane or even take travel out of it, never even trying a new job. Like somebody that gets a job at 18 and is literally there for the
The whole
whole,
time.
even though I think a lot of that mentality is kind of changing now because
Oh
people are
yeah,
working.
this new
Yeah,
generation be
that's
like
different.
one and done.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
out. Like you
yeah.
didn't want to pay me, I'm out.
Yep. Three jobs in 1 month and shit. Like, but I still think there are parts of that are kind of almost like ingrained. Like there's like a kind of like an unknown and the fear aspect of it.
I
Even being
mean,
able to change your personality, how you move and how you talk. Some people, you know, I talk a lot like this with my son because he's what 14, and we're in the bay. We got a little certain swag to us, different talking and all that, and I see it like in real time, like showing up in him, and I'm like, boy, you did not talk like that like a year ago and 2 years ago, and so you're able to watch and see it, and it's just like sometimes I almost have to kind of catch him or check him, and I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, like, and of course, what are you talking about, Dad? You say this or you say that, and I'm
mhm,
like, man, and it's funny, but I'm like, bro, I know, but I'm like,
you're not like that.
I have to constantly switch. I'm trying to like almost reprogram some of my shit because to me, I just feel like if you want to get taken serious in certain arenas or certain groups of people, whatever, you gotta kind of
You
learn
gotta
the
learn how to
lingo.
code switch.
Yeah, you gotta code switch and all that. So I was explaining that to him the other day, but yeah, even that, like a fear of not wanting to code switch or not wanting to seem fake or this is where I'm from and all that type of
I
stuff.
mean, I know that there's always innately a sense of fear for anything unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest difference is just what you do with it. Like, are you going to allow that fear to paralyze you or are you going to allow it to be a catalyst? And then do you have the discernment to know when that fear is there to protect you or when it's actually a detriment to you?
Mm.
Like historically, I've been a very risk averse person
Mm.
out there, like thinking about everything from every perspective and every angle. And like one of my stories that's always like a perfect way to kind of epitomize how risk averse I am is probably like maybe 2013. It's been a while, but I was speaking at this conference in Vegas.
Mm.
Um,
Group speaking, huh?
I didn't want to do it. I'm not real big on the.
I'm a
I
group.
like to be behind the
Yeah.
scenes, not in front of the audience.
Yeah, yeah.
But the account reps at whatever software program we were using at the time wanted me to come speak because I was like a power user. I helped design some of the functionality and a bunch of other things that most people don't really care about.
Mm.
But I did it. So it was like a free trip to Vegas and they paid for my room at the Cosmo and all that was great.
Mm-hmm.
And then they gave us a $150 chip, right, to go
Mm.
gamble with. So I had a couple coworkers that were also there. They went, took their chip and playing blackjack, doing the slots. I cashed my chip in, went back to my room.
Oh, okay.
Because in my head, I'm like, okay, technically I'm not losing anything because this wasn't my $150 to start with, right?
Uh-huh.
But if I just cash this in and go back to my room, I'm also guaranteed $150, which is
Mm.
more than what I came here with.
Mm.
So that story is always real interesting
That really
because
is. I want to. I for sure. My mind is like going bing, bing,
No,
Like,
like I had a friend who by the end of the night he was down like 2K, and I was like, nope, not me.
yeah. Wow. So at no, did the thought ever cross your mind to maybe like, okay, I'm gonna keep this, I'm gonna pocket this 150 just for like pure like, oh shit, that's a cool little come up, but I'm still gonna like entertain and go and be out on the scene with the
I
coworkers
still
and all
went
that.
down there or watched with them or whatever, but I
Yeah,
wasn't gambling. I
yeah,
watched
yeah.
them gamble.
Okay,
I
so it
watch
wasn't
you.
like you just like went up in the room and was like
Nah, I didn't.
isolated.
I mean, I'm good for that too, but
Yeah,
I didn't like completely just disassociate from everybody. But I was not gonna spend any of that money. Not on a penny slot. Not on.
yeah, yeah,
I I already came up. I was up.
yeah. That's hella
You
fun. I
gotta
ain't
know.
I'm not a big gambler either,
You gotta
though.
know when
Honestly.
to catch and just like take your win, because I
Yeah.
feel like I've heard so many different stories, not just with like Vegas gambling, but just like gambling in general, where people just don't know when to get out. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, in looking at that situation, I wasn't losing anything if I did. Because if I were to gamble, I probably would have still only given myself that cap. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not losing. I'm not adding my money to the pool. I'm not like none of that.
yeah.
But I still, I was already up.
That's hella interesting. I bet I, yeah, that man, that's a trip. Yeah, I'm trying to think what I would have did. I probably would have. Yeah, I'll be honest. I probably would have thought about it like that since I didn't. It's not my money anyway. God gave it to me. Then for sure, I'm gonna let's risk it all. I probably would have did some dumb shit like 150 on black, just one hit, like just for that little chance. But I'm also not a gambler either. I wouldn't.
Yeah, but see, by not gambling though, a lot of it is evaluating whether you're okay with the consequences either way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I'm up 150, and yeah, I had a coworker who was down 2K, but I also had a coworker who hit and was
Yeah.
up 1,500.
Uh huh.
So there's always that side of it too.
Yeah.
It's just like constantly weighing in and evaluating situations, not even just with that gambling one, that's a direct one, but in life when you're thinking about, okay, this job. Do I take a gamble on this job that feels like it might be too hard, come up with a higher salary and possibly more skills? Or do I stay where I'm comfortable? I'm making it work on this salary anyway.
Yeah.
So there are so many different parallels in life. Like a lot of people get caught up thinking about everything is separate, but so many different themes and concepts just entirely permeate through different arenas of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's even what I'm thinking about in that situation. I'm just kind of like, I was gonna ask you, like, do you ever feel like you being risk adverse like that and kind of just like thinking about the outcomes of different possibilities and all that? Do you ever feel like you kind of just get caught watching the game, like so to speak, like even the life game, like
Sometimes,
yeah,
I mean, I think it's a toss up, because there are also times where like being risk averse or weighing out or thinking things through a little bit, it also saves you from making some of the mistakes other people have made, right? So
yeah,
it's just like, okay, when that Bitcoin was really popping and
mm-hmm,
Dogecoin, right?
mm-hmm,
And there's so many people who are like, oh, you gotta go buy Dogecoin, you gotta go buy Dogecoin, not doing any research on how volatile it
yeah,
is or the value or how long it's gonna be valued or whatever it is. Me, I'm looking and I'm like, let me sit and see how this will play out. If anything, maybe I'll put some play money in it and see how it goes. But you have people who will like put everything in that because
yeah,
they have this idea that this is the next best thing. This is what's gonna pop next. I'm gonna make my riches. I'm gonna be out,
mm-hmm,
and then it's gone. Or like with the recession that happened in like '08 or '09, you had people who were like doubling up on investments. We hit a recession, they lost like half their retirement funds,
mm-hmm,
value
mm-hmm,
of houses went down,
mm-hmm,
lost their investments. So for me, it's like constantly, it's almost like double dutch, where you like trying to wait
yeah,
to
yeah,
figure out like when you jump in. So you're like watching them turn and you're like counting and you're kind of
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to figure out when's a good time to jump in so that you're not getting beat by the ropes. I
mm-hmm,
think that some of it is like that for me because I think that when I have enough information, regardless of the outcome, I'm more comfortable with my decisions. But if I feel like I didn't do my due diligence into looking into the potential outcomes or whatever, then I'm not cool with that.
Yeah, yeah. As long I feel like I'm probably like literally the opposite.
Yep, I know. That's where the balance comes
That's
in
why this
at.
is a funny ass conversation because like I'm more like
No, you
fuck
wild.
it.
You a wild boy.
Yeah,
You be like, what's today? Monday. You know what? I'm gonna sell my car and cut off all my hair.
yeah.
And you do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love that though, because I also see that as a form of freedom, like your
Yeah.
ability to do that. But I also I don't have that in me innately. Like,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
though sometimes I do things that may seem impulsive, like I've cut my hair a few different times and
Uh-huh.
it seems impulsive to everybody on the outside. But to really know me, you know, I've like
Yeah.
given this some thought for a minute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just a
Something
shock.
that
It's a
seems
shock to you.
yeah, it seems impulsive, but you've been researching haircuts for a year.
Yep, been watching all the videos. Like, you
Uh-huh.
know what? I think I'm gonna go with the drop fade. That's really looking.
That's
That
hella
looks like it's
funny.
popping. Show up
Yeah.
with a picture and everything.
Damn, that's crazy. That's yeah. I feel like I feel like I need some of that, and you maybe need some of my fucking manicism of
But that's the
making.
reason why, it's important to have like a diverse circle of people,
Yeah.
especially the older you get in adulthood, because it's like we need to balance off of each other's strengths
Mm-hmm.
in order to like build on some of those weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not that person who wants to be around a bunch of yes people that are like, oh yeah, you're doing great and all that. Like, nah, tell me when I'm messing up.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me the areas I have for improvement. Like, if you're doing impulsive things that are like physically harming you and your family and your livelihood, I'm a shitty friend if I don't say to you, what's going on?
Yeah, at
Like,
least just let's think about this right
like
for a
like
second.
bestie, let's just. I know you're gonna do what you want to do regardless, but hear me out.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Let
good talk right there.
like, let's just think about this, because sometimes we all have blind spots.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, they're called that for a reason, and
yeah.
we all have them. And I think that that's the other reason why having like a tight circle that you can actually have difficult and uncomfortable conversations with
Mm-hmm.
helps,
Mm-hmm.
because you can watch my six.
Yeah, I think that's a big one because like I think I constitute that a lot to like having emotions tied to it. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going through something or thinking about something, like I may be so emotionally invested in it, like your
Mhm.
judgment is getting clouded. And then like if you have a tight circle of people that got some sense around you, they may not be as emotionally tied to it, so their
Yeah,
decision making is a little more clear. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Especially if you respect the advice of the people. I
Well,
think that's a
yeah,
key part.
you
Yeah,
got to choose the right people. Like,
yeah.
I was talking to somebody about, I don't even remember who it was, but even earlier this week, we were having a conversation about how relationships in your life are also like, your life is like a corporation.
Mm.
So I'm not going to hire somebody who does HR to do all the technical implementations
Mm.
and then be mad. Like, that doesn't work. And a lot of that is parallel with your friendships and relationships too. Like, if I have a friend who I know isn't good with emotional things, when somebody dies, that's probably not the person that I'm going to go to seek solace in.
Mm.
If I have a friend who is really great with money and I'm struggling with a financial idea or risk or whatever it is, I'm going to go to my financially savvy friend. I'm not
Mm.
going to go to the friend who's probably just like, whatever.
Don't come to me. I mean, like, hey, best buy that shit, bro.
Do it, whatever. If you don't like it, you can sell it later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Nah.
for sure. That's actually a really good tip, man. Like you almost like building your team. I know I've always heard that, like building your team and like mine and this and that and all that, but actually being intentional to like, yeah, this is my financial friend. This is my emotional, support friend. This is, and so on. That's actually a really good idea.
I mean, but you also have to have the tricky thing, which is self awareness, right?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people struggle with self awareness. And it's because you're going to see shit you don't like.
That's just tough.
And it's a hard pill to swallow, to like look at yourself and evaluate like your characteristics and the things that are working for you, and then look at all the things that aren't, and know that you are the person accountable for that.
Mm-hmm.
People don't people
Always.
people don't like that.
That shit is a
It's
trip.
uncomfortable. I would rather blame the weather, the
Mm-hmm.
government, my parents, my childhood,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things than say maybe I should get therapy and get some better tools to learn how to navigate situations as an adult. No, it's easier to
Yeah.
deflect.
Yeah.
I mean, you're raising kids. I'm sure you see it all the time.
That
Well,
shit.
so and so doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's actually interesting because now I'm even thinking about like, I guess it's like a balancing act. I'm thinking like if I was to like, all right, go to this person or ask for help from this person or bring this person in my life and actually like base decisions based off of their inputs and this and that. I think I might even like subconsciously like kind of stray from that because so when the shit don't go right, I need to be able to blame myself.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Well, you still do. Because even though you may go to somebody for advice and you consider their advice, the action is on you.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, whether you do or you don't, it's still on you.
Yeah.
You make that decision. And that's the thing that a lot of people also have problems with. Because I like to be accountable and you like to be accountable. That's something we share in common where it's just like good, bad, and different. It's on me, right? There are a lot of other people who avoid it like the plague.
Yeah.
No, nothing's ever my fault.
That's not good.
Things happen to me and it's never my fault, right?
Yeah. It was meant to be. You know what I mean? That shit. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's equal parts, right? Like for people who are spiritual and religious, like a lot of folks ask God to guide their footsteps. And like my thing is, okay, you can ask God to guide your footsteps, but you have to be willing to move your feet. Right?
Yeah.
So I think there's always like a balance and there's always give and take. And I think that the biggest thing about your team is finding ways to pour into people as well as receive people pouring into you and learning.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. It's like a balance. And we talked about that in the last episode, like that sweet spot of like almost like you just said, like God has guided me, but then I still got to move my feet. Like finding that balancing, because when I was even saying like I got to a point where like I felt like I could do this. You know what I mean? Like, oh, even if some shit's not working right, well, I know I could do this, and fix it, this and that. And it was like very a forceful type of vibe and energy that I had. Like, I can like put my head down and just like work my way through whatever.
That's that survival instinct.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes the harder I work and the harder I'm like even hyper focused on something, like, no, it's gotta work. I know. It's like God, somebody is just like,
no, that's not for you.
This ain't how this game go.
The harder you work at it, the more frustrating it can be.
It's very interesting,
and it's hard to know which time is which, right? Because you can always be wondering, like, well, if I would have just maybe stuck with this for so much longer, maybe it would have popped by now.
Yeah,
it's my fault because I didn't invest enough time. I wasn't patient enough. I wasn't educated enough on whatever the topic may have been.
That thinking right there, that is where I feel like I've kind of almost been there for a few months now. Shit, fuck around, probably a year or two. Like that thinking of like, ooh man, and it's like that's very much like a state. Like there's no clarity in that. No. You're just kind of like trying hella different shit. Like it's not where I feel like that's where I probably need to like double back and almost kind of address things how you do, like more, methodical or whatever, just like looking at shit and just being like, okay, let me get the facts. Let me do the research. What's really working here? Not what do I feel? Sometimes I do get my heart in it. It's like, oh, I just feel this way. But sometimes that's not intuition, it's more ego. And being able to discern what all these things is what's working, what's talking to you.
I mean, and a lot of it has to do with also clearly defining what it means for something to work, right?
Yeah.
Because it could be working. It's just not working the way that you want it to work. Right? Like when I'm doing marketing stuff, let's say it's from an email perspective. How somebody defines a successful email campaign can be different depending on what the goal of that campaign is.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to code it. You still have to have it look visually a certain way. It has to function a certain way. But the metric of success can vary.
Mm.
Like if I'm sending you an email and I just want to give you some information, okay, maybe that metric of success is, did you open it? Okay, cool. If I want you to go to my site, then my metric of success is, okay, did you open it and did you click it? Did you go to the site?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm sending you something about an event I'm doing and I want you to register for that event, I want to know if you opened it, if you clicked it, if you went to the site, but ultimately, did you sign up for the event?
Mm.
So it's all still an email, but defining that idea of success varies. So I think that sometimes a lot of us will think of like this big goal, right? Like, I got a goal. Some people are like, okay, I want to make $1,000,000. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? I'm just going to throw things at the wall and see if something sticks, as
Yeah.
opposed to, well, I know that this can generate X amount because I've done this before. So maybe I got 200K accounted for. Now, where's that gap coming from? Do I want to invest it? Okay, well, if I do invest it, where am I investing it? Am I going to invest it in real estate? Am I going to invest it in stocks? What has the return? And also, how long am I giving myself to make this goal?
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of those things are missing sometimes when people make these abstract goals. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even for my personal training days, oh, I want to lose weight. Okay, what does that mean? You can lose weight by going to the bathroom.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to lose 5 pounds? Do you want to lose 20 pounds? Do you need to lose 100 plus? Like, got to start there with a clear goal. And then we can work our way to a plan because, okay, let's say your overall goal is you want to lose 100 pounds. Thinking about the goal that big is daunting, and that's usually where people will stop
Mm.
because it seems impossible. It seems too big. It seems like it's going to take too long. But
Mm-hmm.
if I say to you, let's just focus on losing 1 pound this week, and next week, do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you'll get to that number
Yeah, and you're gonna get some momentum that way because
to,
momentum, I think,
to
is the
keep you
big
going.
big part of it. Yeah.
Momentum and discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that too many of us lean in on motivation, right? We're like, oh, I want to feel motivated. Like, I'm using this motivation to go hit the gym and meal plan and eat right and everything. But motivation is like another muscle.
Yeah.
It gets worn out too.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going to carry you through? Because you're not always going to feel like going to the gym.
Yeah.
So do you feel like reaching your goal? Is your goal still your goal? Because if it is, it's no longer about what you feel like. It's about that discipline that carries you through. I'm committed to this goal. So whether I feel like it today or tomorrow is irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's part of the process.
Yeah. You know what I've been doing lately? It's kind of has something to do with this. Is like I've almost been I, like not shaping my identity necessarily to like something, but say like that for somebody that wants to lose weight, like almost in your mind, like telling yourself, like I am somebody that goes to the gym every day.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I am that person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I've been trying to like almost like yeah, like I wrap my identity, I guess, yeah, around certain things, like certain characteristics. Like I am somebody that goes to the gym X amount of week.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I move.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So how does a person that does that? How do they move? How do they eat? I need to probably eat like that type of person. What I would think that person, you know, almost like picking an avatar type of vibe. That's kind of how I've been like, I don't know, gamifying, I guess,
I
in my
mean, but
mind.
even if you think about it and you're thinking about that now, that's not that different from what you were doing as a kid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's it's basically, are you harnessing that power for good or evil type
Mm,
thing, you
mm-hmm,
know?
mm-hmm.
Because it's true. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah,
That's the end of the story.
yeah,
So it is up to you, which is a great thing, but also a daunting thing because circling back to the whole accountability
yeah.
thing, people aren't a fan of that.
Yeah, and being realistic too. Like even
Mm-hmm.
something simple like, oh, I want to make $1,000,000. Look at a millionaires and see how they move, see
Mm-hmm.
how their schedules are, see how their lifestyles are. You know, like generally, you know, and like compare it to what you're doing. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we a lot of times we ask whatever we ask the universe or we ask our lives to be a certain way, but then if you really look at the people that we're like somewhat idolizing or whatever,
You're not willing to live like them.
nowhere near it. even anything like a relationship. Oh, I want to have a very thriving relationship. Well, you know you want to do that, or you want to go out every weekend. You want to do this and do this and that. Like those, the things that we're asking for are coinciding with what we're doing. You
But I
know.
think that's because a lot of time there's no discernment between what we're innately asking for and what we're asking for based off of what we think we should be asking for, right? Because I
That's a
think
good
like
one.
coming up to like 30,
Cut that out.
coming up on like 30, everybody's like, oh, you're supposed to have a house, you're supposed to do this, this, and that, right? Now, if you're living in California and you looking at all these numbers and you're looking at what you're bringing in and everything else, do you really want that house or do you want the house because you think you should?
Yeah, yeah,
You
that
know?
part. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's always going to be the case because we're not living alone. We're constantly being bombarded with like stuff through
Hmm.
movies, media, radio, social media, like whatever you call it, there is some type of influence.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you that earlier when we was talking about it. Like, so how do you think you decipher like whether I'm looking at somebody's lifestyle as opposed to like in a sense of like, okay, I'm looking at this person, they have a house, they got this and that, so I'm gonna like model that. How do you think? How do you say like basically? How do you decipher if I'm doing it because that's what I want to do, or is that's I'm just mirroring what's around me? You know what I mean?
That's a good question.
That is like, is it like a feeling in your, you know what I mean? That's a tricky one because we all everything we did from the shoes to the pants, everything is at some level based off of something we've seen or somewhere
Of
emulating it
course.
to a certain the point. So like it's almost like how do you know if you're really doing what you want to do or you're that's the
Do
tricky
you?
part. And that is see, and that's why that kind of led that thinking that kind of led me to this. You know what? I could start every day like and thinking however I want to. You know what I mean? However you want to move. If you want to, like you said, I want to be a in shape person. Well, what does an in shape person do? They wake up, they eat, they go to the gym, they do this, they whatever. I'm gonna do that today. It's literally that easy. It seemed like it'd be like hard, but it is. It's just like you almost gotta like kill your identity the night before,
I
if that
think
makes sense.
I think a lot of it is letting go of who you think you are to leave
Yeah,
room for who you can be, right?
yeah.
Because I know the other thing that I've been learning, like in this late 30s swing, is to never say never, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I got my very first tat a while ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at some point being like, oh, I could never have a sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
Sleeved up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I remember first getting a tattoo on the neck. Like it first initially started as like a little behind the ear thing, something
Mm-hmm.
little, it was easy to cover up. Then added something on it, and then one whole side was done. Then came up with like this image that I saw in my head, got the other side done. And I was like, oh, I could never do my throat. That would hurt. That would hurt too much. And like, oh, like I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah.
Whole throat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
neck,
big tatted for sure.
neck just blasted. Even with like, got the face tat not that long ago. And I remember being like, okay, for real this time though. Like, I draw the line. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, you know, I know I got my neck and everything, but not getting anything on the face.
Mm-hmm. How is that? How's that going? The sun one.
Oh, you feel me?
Uh-huh.
You see me?
Yeah.
We in there.
I gotta get a picture of that. What speaking of that, what you like what are your tattoos like why do you get tattoos?
Tattoos for me, number one, I like art. So,
Mm-hmm.
my father's an artist, and I've always kind of just like liked and appreciated art, music, canvas, photography,
Mm-hmm.
fashion, tattoos. Like a lot of my tattoos, I designed myself
Mm-hmm.
and just needed somebody else to like put the tattoo razzle on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's kind of what it started as. And it's also therapeutic in a lot of ways. And I think it's symbolic of life in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can go through pain temporarily for something that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's pretty symbolic of life, or even just like the reason why I get what I get. Even though execution might not have been great on all of them, when
Mm-hmm.
you're younger, money and
Yeah, sometimes it don't even out. Yeah,
it's not evening out, and also just your eye, like the
Mm-hmm.
tattoo net, like it's changed
Oh
drastically.
yeah,
Like
for
the
sure.
level of artistry has changed also, where
Mm-hmm.
now really good art is more accessible, not only because I have more money for it, but also because the artists are better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's always just been kind of like a form of therapy,
Yeah,
and
that's a
also kind of
trip.
like
Yeah.
it's like a lot of people take pictures of like events or whatever it is. Like I can kind of pinpoint what was going on during what time in my life, good, bad, and different, on my tats.
So it's kind of like almost like little
It's
mementos
like a
type of
story.
thing. Yeah, stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of probably where I like lie with it a little bit more too. Is like all my tattoos. That's why I have a lot of wording too. I always said like if you was to like like see I'm dead on a ditch somewhere, you'd be able to like read my tattoos and be like, I can get a good sense of who this person was. You know what I mean? What they were about. You know what I mean?
At least at that time, because
Yeah, yeah.
constantly evolving,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Or like, yeah, just like you said, be able to tell a story of this person's journey. You know what I mean? Like what their mindsets was
What their
throughout their life.
influences were,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
important to them,
Mm-hmm.
what they're trying to establish. Like I think
Yeah.
for sure, it all tells some type of story,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all for some type of purpose.
Do you have any, especially like in your work? Do you have any experiences where you were like, "Ooh, these tattoos are kind of making things a little tougher than you know what I mean?" Like, I don't want to say regrets, but like,
So
just you know.
I didn't start like really getting blasted in like very visible ways until like I was pretty cool from a career standpoint.
Okay.
Um, it's still
Back to your risk adverse mind. You
it
know what I
kind of
mean?
sort of, and especially because I mean a lot of it is also the times have changed too, where tattoos are more acceptable.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm on the higher end when they say that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that there's also been a shift in that where there are more professional people who have tattoos. Like there's judges that are fully sleeved up and like executives, and so I think that helps some. But also to your point, I for a very long time I didn't have anything that I couldn't cover if I needed to,
Mm.
and even now, like you guess that I'm pretty covered just because what I do have is pretty visible.
Mm-hmm.
But if I really wanted to, I can cover most,
Yeah. Yeah.
just not
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe with a turtleneck.
Yeah. 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 No, because I think you're right though. It does. They are becoming like way more acceptable. You know what I mean? And the industries are changing, but like I always wonder that, like, because then it depends too what industry you are in. 'Cause some of
I
them
think
ain't,
I think also tattoos are a form of freedom for me too.
Mm,
Like there's also I think we all have some type of rebellious nature in us. There's like I know that people aren't really gonna be rocking with this, but fuck it, I'm doing it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I do think that a part of it was that for me too, because I already didn't look like anybody else in these rooms that I'm sitting in. I'm
Mm,
6'3", I'm black, I had
mm-hmm.
locks or like I had a fade at some point, I wear dude's clothes. Like there were already so many different layers
That's a
and
lot. Yeah,
dimensions.
yeah. You stacking right
So
there.
so eventually I was just like, well fuck it, y'all gonna feel how you gonna feel regardless.
Yeah.
And so there is a certain burden that comes from that just because I'm so multidimensional and people don't expect it.
I
Like
was gonna ask that. Is there like a point where you go into some situation at work or wherever and you think you're already knowing like, oh, these people think this and this
mm,
that. Oh, I'm finna fuck them up with this. Well,
all the
watch, they
time.
gonna hit them with this, hit them with this lingo or
It's been
knowledge
that
or
it's been that way since
that's
as
kind of
far as I
tight.
can remember. Like it
Yeah.
hasn't even just been a professional sense, even from an academic sense. Like I had AP and honors classes, but
Yeah.
people might have known me only as a hooper.
Uh huh.
So like I've always had multiple layers to me, and I've
Yeah.
never really. I think that a lot of my life I spent trying to like minimize myself to fit into whatever box I needed to fit into. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this hooper identity. So I'm a people have this expectation of a person who does this. Similar to what you said.
Mm-hmm.
You tell yourself, I am X, so that means that I have to do Y and Z, right?
Yeah.
So I think I spent a lot of time doing that and trying to fill whatever box I was supposed to be in. Or like when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, right? I don't quite fit in there either. So I look a lot harder than I actually am. I look a
Mm.
lot more masculine than I really am. Like I definitely have traits of both, but the reality is I'm much more in the middle.
Mm.
And so, especially with being black, like a lot of studs be like, "You're not a real stud." I'm not
Mm. Why would one say that?
because I'm not. I am not overly dominant in my masculinity or my femininity. I
Mm.
don't prescribe to some of the boxes that are placed on that, which is
Yeah.
why it's very hard for people to put me in boxes in general.
Yeah.
Like, I got male friends who are like, "Well, yeah, you're one of the boys, but you, I don't really know." Or
That's
people,
tight though.
I mean, in some ways it is, but in some ways it complicates things because you start to wonder what the whole picture of you looks like because so much
Mm.
of you is compartmentalized in these different avenues and spaces.
Mm.
Like, okay, cool, I could be a hooper here, but also growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, being a black person from Oakland, for some reason, it wasn't cool to be smart.
I don't. I still think that stigma is on it. It's still not.
Like it
That's
wasn't it
crazy.
wasn't cool to be smart. So it's like, okay, when people knew I was in AP classes or doing really well in classes or whatever, it was like that somehow negated my blackness. But
Mm.
then also, my parents are from the island, so there's already a disconnect between my blackness and their blackness.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then me being a logical thinker, I'm like, but why would you? Okay, if I'm intelligent, intelligence is a good quality. Why wouldn't you want that to be something associated with blackness?
Yeah.
You know?
What man? Let's get into that because that's a deep one. That's a for sure rabbit hole because it is. It's almost like a shame
Yeah.
to be academically smart, to
Mm-hmm.
even carry yourself with some like sort of respect. It's when did that start? Because I have a lot of conversations about I even that was like even one of my motivations for even starting this is to like try to get people on here that like I was talking a lot of like guys and stuff about it like bro the communities and these young men I'll just keep it as young even young women whatever like how they carry themselves is not going to get any better until like some sort of people or some sort of figures or influencing people say it's okay to just be you know what I mean be cool and be positive be academically strong and all that until that happens everybody it's cool to be dumb it's cool to go to people glorify going to jail nowadays if you ain't in certain circles if you ain't shot nobody or shot at nobody you a square like we're like where did that stuff yeah where do you think that shit came from.
I think that some of it has to do with the fact that that persona has been sensationalized in urban communities, right?
Mm,
So that is what people see, and they're defining their masculinity or their femininity against not recognizing that that's only one part of the picture. Like, I
mm,
think a lot of people in general, I think we all naturally try to categorize, right? You
mm-hmm.
see somebody, you try to like figure out what that person is or who they, whatever they might be. I think that's a
Like a
human innate
primal
thing,
stuff. Yeah.
you know, and just being aware of your surroundings. Like, okay, if I'm looking around and I'm seeing people who I know are doing things to destroy property or whatever it is, I have a situational awareness. It's like, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and head over here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot of it has to do with like limited exposure to certain things. And it's so much more complex than I
It
think any
is.
of us really realize
Yeah.
because being older, you can look at it and be like, man, that's wild. But also, history continues to repeat itself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, things escalate and there's a lot more visibility into it now because of technology, but there's always been a divide between the generations, particularly in urban communities.
Mm.
You know, whether it's like the families who are insistent on having like the nuclear families and who, you get that good job and you stay with that good job and you take care of your family and you do this and that. And there's always somebody who's doing something, whether it was bootlegging, whether it was selling drugs, whether it was, prostitution or whatever. Like there have historically always been these places
Yeah.
and these roles.
You know what I think a lot of it has to do with just off of I don't know why I barely even watched that movie Cruise, but
That's
hella
your
shit
movie right now.
hella
It's
shit
hidden.
goes back to that. I really when I look at it and I look at human nature, I look at how people interact with each other and all that. I look at that as the people that are doing, let's say, quote unquote, like bad things or whatever, or with the shit, or just risque things. I don't know how you want to call it, but like all that stuff, it boils down to going against the grain. You know what I'm saying? Against the status quo, against the law, the structure, and what people are kind of like quote unquote supposed to be doing. Like even bootlegging, it's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. Government says this, but these select individuals decided to like, nah, fuck that. We gonna do what we want to do, and I think in people we almost look at shit like that, like, and even though it's even that one's whatever, but like even though like shit might be harmful to other people and whatever, we somehow sense a sense of like rebelliousness. You know what I mean? Like going against, and that in itself kind of like takes courage. You know what I mean? We're not even looking almost sometimes at the act. We're looking at, damn, that person is courageous, or brave to even do something regardless of the consequences. You know what I mean? Like
But when things like that become mainstream, is it really courageousness though?
exactly.
Because it's like a perfect example is rappers, right?
Yeah.
Like you go back through the history of rap and you knew that it evolved. Technically, if you go way, way back, it evolved from like a musical art form in Africa that got taken away through all the migration of the people and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Resurfaces in New York with the MC.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said,
A lot of rebelliousness from
it
that
was
whole
it was
thing.
like, this isn't gonna sell. This will never take traction. This will never be popular. This doesn't require a certain same level of skill.
Mm-hmm.
And then it does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody wants to be a rapper.
Yeah, it's like an element of like risk. You know what I mean? Like when people, I feel like people are naturally drawn to risk takers. Whether it's this person, this rapper, this kid, a guy, whatever, is taking the risk of, I'm gonna make a living off of saying words in this mic and carrying myself instead of doing this 9 to 5 or going to school or putting my faith on this employer or whatever. I know I'm gonna take a risk and roll the dice and try to become a rapper, and that's like putting all their eggs in that basket. Like some people, I feel like they,
And what's one rapper who has done exactly that? Name one.
which you mean?
Because they all, none of them have technically ever put all of their eggs in that basket. It was always, I had something going. I'm doing the rap thing. I'm going to keep whatever it's going on, drug sales or a job or whatever they got going on,
Yeah,
until the rap pops.
yeah,
But people only see the end result and
yeah,
assume that's all they need to invest their efforts into.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, for sure. I get that, but I just think like at a like without like looking deep into their background, like at a glance, almost or even like ladies like some guy might look up to like a late. Oh man, that boy, he got all the women, this and that. I wish I had the like I could see a guy not even like being conscious of it. You know why he admires this man and how
Mm-hmm.
he's able to move with women, because that guy is taking risks left and right. He has no fear of, man, I'm gonna pop out all 20 of these women in this room. I'm gonna get one of, like that kind of I don't know if it's the right word, it's courage, but like just the confidence, or even if it's blind confidence, whatever. I feel like people are drawn to that.
I think it's the not having a fear of rejection and failure
Yeah,
that people are drawn to.
yeah, well, yeah, maybe that. There's
Yeah.
something that, you know
I
what I
think
mean?
I think it's that, because that just circles back around to the whole idea of freedom. If I
Yeah.
don't care whether you say yes or no, I can move however and be fine with the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people are governed by a
fear.
potential consequence.
Yeah,
Not
fear.
even like the actual consequence, but a potential.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
It's like fear moves. Fear kind of dictates how they move through life. And when people see other people and they see fear not dictating them, they're drawn to that,
yeah,
even if that shit is a bad thing. You know what I mean? Because you gotta have. I mean, it just depends how you look at it. But even if I'm say, I know people that have like idolized like fucking shooters, like real deal, like killers. What is it that you're like doing? You know what I mean? Is it like what are you like drawn to? You know what I mean?
I think that sometimes it's also a security in your identity. Even if that identity is negative, if you're known as a shooter and everybody knows you as a shooter and you
Mm-hmm.
live in that, some people are drawn with the idea that people are so confident in who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's, I think ultimately everybody trying to figure out who they are, right?
Yeah.
In this grand system, what matters to me, what doesn't matter to me, what are my values, what's
Mm-hmm.
really important in the grander scheme of things, who's
Mm-hmm.
really important. But I think that nobody really got it.
Nah, hell no.
I'm
I don't think
like,
nobody got it. Nobody know.
I think everybody, it's a constant pursuit. And
Mm-hmm.
also, it's challenging to really acknowledge and be okay when things shift.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's also like the disassociating from who you were to the person that you now are, right? And when you make a shift in that, it's uncomfortable and it can be
Yeah.
painful because it's like you're mourning the death of a person.
Yep.
And then also the people who have been in your orbit for however long are also mourning the old you,
No, I was just gonna say that. That gets
you
real
know?
weird
And you
when
feel
you
a
switch
guilt with
up.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
oh, why you don't want to come out and drink no more? And it's like that's that's not the person that I'm trying to be today and
Mm-hmm.
moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking anybody else and their decisions and how they want to live their life, but for me and where I want to head, that's not where I'm at.
Yeah.
And there's a guilt with that because people feel like you're abandoning them. You feel like you're abandoning your people,
Yep.
which is why it's so easy to like slip back into old elements when you surround yourself with people from previous parts of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
You find yourself doing the same things that you thought you left behind.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really hard to reconcile that with them and also reconcile it with you and be like, I can love you and you can still mean the world to me and you will always have a place in my life because of who you were, but it also doesn't align with the person that I'm seeking to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of the time that guilt around that is what prevents a lot of us from really growing because you feel bad leaving people behind.
Yeah.
There's a guilt associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
And because even if you are a new person today, there are still elements of that person that you were yesterday.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I feel like a lot of them elements really stay in there too. You know what I mean? Really stay in there, and you gotta. I think at least in my experience, I've found that like the more you take a second to actually think and not just be moving, you know what I mean? Like even like with meditations and stuff, like I think and I try to figure out why like those years or this years or whatever, why did I move that way? Or why did I carry myself that way? What made me do this? Or what made me react in this way? What was really accountability with my intention of being accountable? Why did I really move that way? And once you start really figuring out like why you make certain actions that you've been making, sometimes that shit it really does like a light switch. Like boom, like you know what? I don't like. That is why I did that. I don't like that shit. That don't sit well with me. I ain't doing that no more.
I mean, it's hard to look at the things that you've done in the past and acknowledge the ways that you fucked up.
Yeah,
You know, like for people who
I
are
like
not
to
like
talk about them.
the people who are not like, you know, lacking emotional
Yeah,
anything, but for most of us who actually care about people, it's hard to look back and be like, damn, I was fucked up in this situation.
hmm
Or to acknowledge the hurt you caused somebody.
yeah. You know what's kind of crazy about that is through my journey I've like I almost really like to be like almost like hyper accountable or like hyper aware of what I
Mm-hmm.
did and why I did it and even like talk about it.
Yeah.
So, but that's actually a selfish thing because on the back end I'm really doing it. So almost like you can't tell me shit.
I was gonna say
You know what
it's
I'm saying?
it's like nobody can
You
hold
can't.
anything over you.
Yeah, it's like that Eminem. Remember when he
Like I
did the?
owned it.
Yeah, when the Eminem at the end and he was talking, basically started talking shit about himself, and then dude didn't have no. When the battle rap, he didn't have
Mm-hmm.
no nothing to say about him, and I was like, that's kind of how I look at him. Like, bro, I know I done did this and fucked up here and here. Let's talk about it. We'll, like, it's almost like not like fleshing out your sins or whatever, but in a sense it is. It's
Kind
like
of.
it's out in the world, and now I'm like, it makes you very like light, not heavy, because nobody got nothing on you really, because it's like, what you gonna say that I haven't already addressed or even addressed with that person, or people already know what it is.
But I mean, whether you do or you don't, we don't have any control over anybody else. We barely got control over ourselves half the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like I think there's also a freedom in freeing yourself from that to a certain degree. Like
Mm-hmm.
I still care about people and I still genuinely want to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, if somebody has convinced themselves of my character other than that, it's really not my business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because what am I supposed to do? Change your mind about me? Why?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Does it hurt? Of course. I'm human. Nobody wants anybody saying anything negative about them. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same point, there's a reconciliation between your negative perceptions that are based off of whatever it is you got going on, your baggage, your trauma, and all that,
Mm-hmm.
and my actual intentions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I definitely have something with that though. I have like I understand that like nobody, you people could like love me or hate me. It's I'm still walking. It's not gonna affect me. This and that. But I do have a sense of like I at least want you to know all the facts. You know what I mean? I do have a problem with people. If I think somebody has a problem with me, but I know it's based off of only their perspective because they only got like a piece of the information or whatever, that does bother me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's just like when you learn about communication. Like, communication is one thing. I can tell you what happened, comprehension is another.
Mm-hmm.
And your
Now
comprehension,
that part you don't have no control over how
now
they
your
comprehend.
comprehension is going to be based off of where you are, what you've been, how you're taking it, how you're interpreting my body language or whatever it may be, any cultural differences, like all of those things are playing as
Yeah.
we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
So I can give you facts all day.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you get them?
Yeah. That's when it gets real tricky. At the end of the day, all this shit is crazy, like complex. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because everything is super, like you said, super subjective based off of how their experiences they've been through and all that. But I think me myself, I do just kind of like at least like I try a little bit. You know what I mean? Where some people are just like they just move through the world like this is me. This is this. I'm very just this is me. Where I try to be at least a little conscious of like how I'm moving and
Mm-hmm.
my impressions I have on people
Yep.
because at the end of the day, um, how you move, the people you greet, the doors you're opening, the bridges you're burning, all that, that really does dictate your journey on
It
this.
does.
That's kind of how I look at it. That's why I even tell my kids like, we're all like shy and stuff sometimes when we're young and all that, but I try
You
to like,
shy?
I could be shy for sure, especially when I was younger. That's
Can't
how.
I
That's
can't
how.
picture it.
Oh yeah, I was hella shy. I was always and it's one thing I got to say about shy people. When I see shy kids, it's a difference between being shy and being to yourself and being shy and watching every move people make. And that was me. I see little gestures. I see, and that's back to what we were talking about before, like when you get a peek behind the curtain. You know what I mean? And I feel like I've been getting peeks behind the curtain since I was very little. And so a lot of, I don't know, I guess ideas or expectations people have like in life from people and stuff, I don't really have that many. You know what I mean? Because I've seen that a lot of things are possible. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things sometimes ain't possible. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why I was shy, but I was really perceiving a lot of stuff. And I've been trying to, as an adult, like I've, I've acquired that knowledge. You feel me? And I'm trying to use it to be the best and not be so what you would call me like a not glum or whatever. What is it?
Pessimist.
Pessimist. Yeah, I don't want to be so pessimistic or whatever moving through the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when they say ignorance is bliss, right?
Oh man, I prayed for that a couple times. I was
It's
like,
like
make
it's
me
like
ignorant, please.
if you don't know what's going on,
That's why
it
I
can't
drink.
it can't bother you. The problem
Hey,
is when you know better and you still don't do better, that's what eats away at you.
oh man, that is literally people that really know me, man. They'll know. Like that is why I will drink. I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking too many. Let me get ignorant real quick. Pass that shot. You almost got to turn it off because if not, all that, yeah, it really is. It's pessimism or whatever. Like that shit really sinks in, and it's like, whatever thoughts you could think of. Or like, I shouldn't be here. This is a waste of my time. I should be working on this. I should be doing do. I literally need to turn that off. Ain't that crazy? It's kind of sad when you think about it.
I
But like,
mean, but that
but
goes
I,
back to you telling yourself what type of person you are. So you also have the power, like a lot of it, you can't stop your thoughts. I mean, I haven't figured out a way.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, with Hennessy, we'll do it for sure.
besides that. But that Henny gonna get you in trouble. It stops your
Yeah,
thoughts entirely, and then you don't even remember. You can't be accountable.
yeah. I need a better way to turn my brain off. Healthier way.
So I think that it's more about, or at least like what I've been trying to learn how to do is just like shifting the narrative. Like
Mm,
when those negative or pessimistic echoes
that's
get too
good.
loud, I try to like interrupt them
With a more positive narrative.
somehow,
Yeah,
because that's the beauty in like this whole idea of balance is that there is an opposite and equal for almost everything.
yeah. I
may not
like that.
may not always be accessible, but even just the practice of forcing your brain to try to think for the positive interrupts that negative thought.
I like that. Pattern interruption.
You know,
That might be a tab. Control the narrative.
it
The narrative.
is. And the most important narrative isn't the external one, it's the internal one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's all internal, huh? That's pretty good. Yeah. That definitely that's something I wanna stick to because it's everything. You know what I mean? Like you can literally be right in the middle of some shit and feeling one way, and if you take 1 second to be like, you know what, I'm gonna look at it, whatever, from their point of view, and let me,
I
whatever
mean,
it is,
the biggest thing about adulthood is no matter where you're sitting in the lifestyle you're living, you can always look at it as you're failing adulthood, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because you will compile that list high
yeah,
of all the ways you're falling short. I'm
yeah,
not where I thought I would be. I don't have this. I don't have that. I'm not here.
yeah,
But then if you take a step back and like remove that narrative and like try to reframe it, it's just like, I'm also not where I was 10 years ago.
yeah. I've for sure been doing that
You
lately.
know, like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
where I was, even if I'm not where I thought I might would have wanted to be, I'm not where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And also, sometimes what you think you want is from a place of ignorance. You don't actually want that.
Yeah,
Like when people were talking about, oh, I want to be a celebrity, I would never,
yeah. Me neither.
never.
Me neither.
That bank account, that'd be kind of
Yeah,
nice. But as
yeah,
far as like, I can't even go to a Target without somebody trying to
yeah,
like get in my space, or
yeah.
I have to like really plan a Target trip, like make sure security's on tap to take me to Target.
Mm-hmm.
Like that idea is horrible to me.
Yeah, it's almost like hell on earth, and that's why I say everything is super subjective. Because like one person can be like, "I'm just living the dream," woo woo, but somebody else be like, "This is hell on earth. I
Listen,
cannot,"
some of the happiest people I've ever met, no lie, have been homeless. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, unhoused.
Mm-hmm. We can't do that. We can't say that.
I thought that homeless was supposed to be like less politically correct, so I'm trying to like
Ah,
retrain
I
and
can't
say
even keep up with all these damn
I can't
words.
either, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
unhoused.
I'm gonna keep that in mind.
Some of the happiest people. I mean, some of the craziest as well, like
Yeah.
with a lot of mental issues that they're suffering from and drug addiction. But
Mm-hmm.
I've also met like some really happy unhoused people.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, this one guy that I met, his name was, what was his name? I think it was Mike. And over there in downtown Oakland. And he wasn't even begging. He was just like chilling, telling everybody to have a good day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you know me, either I'm in antisocial or I'm in my curious mode.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
just like, why are you so happy? And he told me, he was like, I'm alive.
Mm.
I'm healthy for the most part. I know. And then he even said to me, he was like, yeah, I know you think I'm crazy because I'm out here with no house or, just have my little like
Mm.
stuff. And he was like, but how much do you really need?
Yeah,
He was like, when I get hungry, I find food.
yeah. You know what's so funny about that? I mean, it's not funny, but like I have found myself,
Here we go. Here we go, bestie.
but I'm not
Here we
gonna lie.
go.
I'm not gonna lie. I've got to the point where I'll be thinking because I'm around a lot of like unhoused people. For the most part, though, a lot of them I could tell it's a lot of like drug induced stuff. But I find myself thinking that a couple times, almost like to the point where I like scared myself. Like, boy, hold up! Like, you need to like snap out of it because you do when you start getting into that. Like, man, how much do we really need it? Like, what really makes me? That shit'll take you down a road where you be like, shit, that don't sound too bad. You feel me? Like I was like, and then you start going into the tiny homes and retrofitting a sprinter van to what, fuck it, I just got a car, I'll just lay the seat back. Like you start getting into a I felt like I had to bring myself back, like, nah, bro, like, yeah, you can be home one with the whatever, you don't need much, but like you also have kids, you know what I mean, you
Yeah, and I
also
think
have this, you also my one of my big motivations is to like kind of influence others and kind of motivate them, this and that, right? So then you have to start thinking like human nature wise, how does the mind work? Ain't too many homeless people out here motivation like speaker. Not that I want to be a motivational speaker, but like not too many people looking up to an unhoused person. So then I'm like, okay, now I have to start using my lifestyle as like a tool to like influence young men and women to make better decisions and all that. So then I get back, you know what I mean, get back, pulls it
get
back, you know
reined
what I
back
mean.
in.
Yeah, but for a minute, man, like you said, like I done seen a few people. I'm like, they got
Some of
hella
them living it
friends.
up. Hot
They got
plates,
friends
got a
like a motherfucker. Like,
community.
yeah, they got sense
Some
of
of them be
community.
having TVs and
Yeah,
iPads and generators and
they
like,
stay busy. They have their little jobs they go and do, and they know everybody in the neighborhood. Like I'm like, damn, this ain't too bad. You feel me?
and
But
on the flip side of that though, I think that a lot of people are desensitized to the idea that most of us are just a couple paychecks away.
man,
Like,
that was my mo because we're doing a I guess I can mention that it's gonna be still out. I'm doing some more tattoo orders. We're doing like the tattoo raffle, and it's in the proceeds are going to the unhoused people, and that was a big part of it. I was just like, man, I almost need to say another video about it because I'm like, I don't think people understand. I think people looked at those people and they're like, whatever, oh, they're on drugs or they lazy, whatever. I'm like, man, if you really sat down and listened to even one of these two stories or whatever, you would realize these movies was probably doing better than you at one point. You know what I mean? And we think that like, oh, that'll never happen to me because I got a work ethic, because
mm,
I got people that got my back, this and that. Nah, like
mm-mm.
nobody is born and grows up like, oh, I'm gonna be homeless. Life, life will put their ass through the ringer and they end up being that way. And I always was like surprised about that, how people can have the audacity to be like,
Yeah.
that'll never be me. They should get a job. Boy, it don't.
It's people out here with
Mm,
whole PhDs that can't find jobs.
yep, yep.
Like, it's not. And there's also been, I think most recently, it was on one of the news channels, and they were talking about lower middle class income is 150K plus salary.
That's crazy.
So if you put that number out there, and then you also know they only recently raised minimum wage, right?
Mm-hmm.
A majority of people are in that lower class,
Mm-hmm. For
not
sure.
lower middle class, like the rung underneath it, right?
Yeah.
Even if historically that seemed like good money, but
Yeah.
you're adding in inflation and cost of everything, and it's just like you got people who are making like high six figures that are also paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mean to tell me that same person could look at somebody and be like, "Oh, bro, tell them to get a job, whatever." One shift, one company's closed
One
down, or this and
restructuring.
that, woo woo, this and that, and we all it's just you know what I mean. So I don't know. I kind of just look at it like shit. I don't know, on some day by day shit, and just like when the sun was shining through here earlier, I was like, I just sat here. I was like, boy, this sun is beautiful. The clouds was hella pretty. I don't know if you seen them yesterday. It was hella pretty and like Panoa and shit. And I'm like, man, I'm kind of on some like, I want to appreciate every little thing like that because you don't know, you
When
just
it
don't
get
know
that
what's around
taken.
that corner, you know.
You don't.
You know. So, yeah, unhoused. I'm gonna have to start saying that. Homeless, unhoused. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can't keep up with the
I can't.
terms. There's so many
I
terms.
try. You know, ultimately I just try not to offend people.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
for sure.
I will make an effort. If you told me one day you wanted to be called Mary, I would do my best to stick
Yeah,
with that. I would.
yeah, yeah. What do you think about like the people that are like, man, I ain't changing. You know, I'm not changing my wordplay for nothing. We've been saying this for this long. Like very rigid. Like not like opposed to changing the titles and all that stuff. What would you say to somebody like that?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because I believe that the same thing that allows you to create those changes and request those changes of you also allows certain people to elect not to respect them.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of feel like you start weeding people out based off of like essentially what their values are.
Mm-hmm.
Like your idea and your rigidity is so much more important than your love for me that you wouldn't be willing to try to make that adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
I get it though. Like when people are so honed in on one idea or one concept or one way you've identified in general, like it's hard for them to make an adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you got to give some grace. But if that person is just flat out like, no,
Just for the sake of saying no, I don't want
yeah,
to do this. Yeah, I think
that's
that's
not
when.
cool.
Yeah, I think that's when it becomes a problem too. But yeah, it's with all of that stuff does it makes me wonder like where my only thing with it is like where does it end? You know what I mean? Stuff like I don't know like it's just to me. I was telling somebody yesterday. I was like, bro, there's just a lot going on. Do you ever feel that way? Like there's just so
Always.
much.
It's always a lot.
Like
But I think it's all like circling back to the search for identity, right? The
mm,
search for your own like community. Like a lot of these terminologies and groups and identifications come from the idea of trying to seek out your tribe, right?
mm-hmm,
And I think that for me, since I've always kind of like, I can stand in a bunch of different circles, but never quite be in any of the circles, if that makes sense, right?
yeah, yeah,
I think that has allowed me to have a little bit more grace for it because I get the idea of, at the end of the day, we're social creatures. And so,
mm-hmm,
even those of us who may be more antisocial or more introverted, you still want to belong somewhere, you
mm-hmm.
know? And so, I think that that's where a lot of the terminologies and things come from is like trying to find your people.
Find a tribe, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's where I think,
Even though it's creating a lot of
yeah,
division as well.
yeah, and that's why I kind of look at that stuff because I don't have no problem with it. It's just like, yeah, everybody has their tribe, and I'm not even talking about just like the with the LGBT stuff. I'm talking about just anything when people
Mm-hmm.
try to like, okay, this is our tribe now. We're categorized as this, but now y'all have to address like when you get like very demanding of things. I think that's where it gets a little, at least it stirs a lot of ruffles a lot of feathers when it comes to people. You know what I mean? I feel like we all should be able to, click up and vibe with whoever we want. You know what I mean? But
I
when
feel
we,
like it should just be respect and love behind it,
yeah,
whatever it
yeah,
may be,
yeah,
but not coming from like a malicious place. But when it comes to that aggression, I think it comes from a lot of groups historically being oppressed. And
mm,
so there's like this additional historical context that's forced them to feel like I have to be aggressive about this
mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm,
if I'm not, it's not respected.
mm-hmm, yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah, it does cause a lot of, for sure, a lot of tension with a lot of people. Hmm.
There's
But
always going to be tension with
yeah,
people.
yeah, it really is. But yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I just feel like there's so. I don't know why. I don't know what. It's just like a lot going on. Like everything. There's a lot of information. I don't know if I'm getting like hypersensitive to that shit or what, but it's like I've had,
Probably.
yeah, it's like getting to be
It's
like
too
just the
much.
simplest shit. Like I like inquired about something, some little business thing, and now these motherfuckers been calling me like 5 times a day, hella emails. Like that's just one little thing I did, and then with all this other shit, there's just too much information in the waves or whatever. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I'm just like,
Gotta
damn, bro.
reset your own algorithm.
Yeah, yeah. Ain't that a trip? I don't know why it's but I think I don't know if it's because I make a conscious effort to like dip out of it and like kind of collect myself, ground myself to where when I go back in and I start addressing these things, it gets to be a lot, or like somebody else that like is always in it and just used to it, like my kids or something, they're just always do like that. It doesn't really affect them because they're in that world.
But I also think that like the younger generations haven't quite developed that critical thinking
Oh yeah,
component of their brain.
hell to no.
And so a part of that ignorance is bliss and desensitization already exists with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, you just you ask them something, they'll Google it, they'll go first answer Google says. It's like, wait a minute, don't you want to see some other perspectives first and then decide
Yeah, yeah.
whether that answer is correct or not?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's just Google.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Oh, I've had a few a little tips with the kids about like something that happened, and I'm like, oh, bro, don't do it that way. Go this way. No, it don't. No, it don't. It goes this way. I'm like, bro, like I've had conversations. I remember he was like even arguing with his mom about some shit about hair. Like, no, it doesn't work. His mom does hair for a living. You feel me? And he swore up and down. It was just. I'm like, bro, I almost like step back, like, bro, you just like don't respect our opinion on shit. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
start, the ego would get in, and it's like, bro, you just like think we don't know shit or
Yeah.
something, and then I have to
Mm-hmm.
just like, or you just have so much faith in this thing that you carry around all day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Of course.
Which one is it?
It's the thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't like that.
all kids has been something. Either it was your friends or people in your neighborhood or whatever. It's never been the parents. Every
Yeah,
generation,
yeah,
it's always like your parents be like, "Oh, you think I haven't been through this before?" And as a kid, you be like, "No." When you become the parent or you're the adult, you're like, "Ah, I
yeah,
see what you meant there.
yeah.
I get it now."
That shit
Start
sucks.
hearing your parents' voice coming out of your mouth, and
Oh
you're
yeah,
like, "When that
yep.
that was me."
Yep, for sure. His big thing is like he got the earphones in all the time.
AirPods.
AirPod, that shit. I'm like, I tell him every time, like when he gets in the car, I'm like, bro, I know you ain't got them AirPod things. Oh my god, take it out. To me, when you don't have when you have your AirPods in, you're not like you just got in the car. You might have said, hey dad, but you just that's it. And now I'm just driving you around. I might as well be
The
a
Uber.
fucking Uber. And
You
then
but you are as a parent.
see, I have trouble. Uh, what is it like reconciling with
Of
that
course
shit?
it is because it's like, how dare you? No job having,
Yeah,
eating up all my food, got
man,
me driving you to and from places, and you can't even take your headphones out.
can't even see. I think I don't know. I know that's very much a thing. Like a lot of parents are dealing with that, isn't that? But like, I can't help the feeling of like, nah, bro. Like, take them out. We gonna talk. And I know I don't like to be forceful because but sometimes I do them like that's the only way to get them to like what I mean understand. I have to really explain like bro, this is you know we only have this many hours. You go to school this many hours. I work this
Mhm.
and that. We have this many hours, and when you have your headphones on for this many hours, now I only see you this much, and you multiply that by year. Like you're only gonna see me this many times. I have to really break it down for them,
Mhm.
and I feel like if a lot of people really thought about it like that, they would be like, oh, you know what? Let's connect a little more. You know what I mean? Even like when people like when you move away from your parents and your parents live somewhere else, they may be what 60 years old or something, and then you're like, oh, I go back and see him. I still see him all the time, or I'll go like once a year or whatever. Okay, once a year, and then how much do you see him when you actually see him? How many hours? Like if you really do the math and you multiply it by like whatever until they're like 80 something, they die or something. If you only had that, if you was able to quantify like how many times you're gonna see them before they die, you would probably be like, oh fuck, I want to go see them more because that number is very small. In our head, we just think it's a lot bigger because it's like, oh, we got hella years, but you're only seeing them. You know what I'm trying to say?
But I think that that's an adult concept that you come into. Like
Yeah.
as you get older and you start losing people,
Uh-huh.
your concept of time changes.
Yeah.
And also, it's like as a kid, 2 weeks seems like forever. As an adult, we blink and we like, was that 5 years ago? So I
Yeah, I
think
don't
that
be knowing shit.
so I think that a lot of that is just like a maturity thing and a time thing because it feels like that. As a kid, time moves slow. As an adult, it moves too fast in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, that's
And they're just addicted to electronics.
yeah.
Like literal
Yeah, for sure.
addiction. Like we'll risk it all
Yeah.
for a game, for the phone,
Yeah.
for whatever.
I don't like that stuff. I don't like where it's going. I've said that a few
Yeah.
times. Like I don't like where the world's going. But I know I sound kind of like crazy or whatever. But it's like I don't know, because then you start getting real control. Like, oh, I can control it. I can stop this wave, which you can only stop it with yourself. You
Yep,
know.
that's it.
So and
It's
then
like we're so much more connected but disconnected at the same time as
yeah,
a
it's a
society.
trip. That's a
Because it's
trip.
like, oh, you can, in your mind, you're like, oh, yeah, I just saw such and such not that long ago. It's because you were interacting with them on social media or whatever. But then go back and be like, how many, it like starts dwindling down, right? Okay, you liked or interacted with somebody on social media. Now, how many people have you called? Number shrinks, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many people have I sat across from and had a conversation with that do not live in my household?
Yeah.
And it dwindles down again, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you think about that also, where I don't think our generation is necessarily as addicted to the electronics, but we have our own things because it's like, how many times you've been out to brunch or at a club or doing whatever kind of activity, and everybody's sitting there,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
you know, like, yeah, y'all are together, but everybody's sitting. One person might be playing a game, one person texting, one person got to film everything that's going on. But like, I think that's also been a shift for me too, is trying to also be fully present.
Yeah.
You know, like how would that be if we having this conversation? I'm sitting here on my phone like this.
Oh
Uh huh.
yeah. That'd be crazy. Be
Yeah.
wild.
What you say?
Yeah, yeah. I see it, and I feel like I see a lot of people in relationships like that.
It happens.
Yeah.
Sending each other little memes and funny things
Yeah.
or
You're
whatever.
communicating a different language
You
at that point.
sit down and watch a show, but nobody's really watching the show. And it's like, what just happened? Oh, I don't know. I was doing reading this article on my phone.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that a lot of it is just, I don't know. I think some of it is like addiction thing, and I know also for people who are more anxious, it's like a coping thing too.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
like I'm only recently getting better at like doing group things because I would definitely be the person at a group out and like kind of to
On
the
the phone?
side, mostly just watching people
Yeah.
and watching them interact. But then if it started becoming too overwhelming, I definitely would pull out the phone
Uh-huh.
and do anything else.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's like,
My thing is like the energy. If the energy's not I don't know, like the frequency or whatever, like the energy, like say, I don't know if we're at like a lunch gathering thing
mm-hmm,
or whatever, and like say I got there late and maybe everybody's, I don't know, maybe a mimosa or two in and their energy's kind of up here.
couple pictures.
Yeah, and coming in and it's like, ooh, shit, I'm not there. You know what I mean? That does cause like a, I don't want to say like a, I don't like freak out or nothing, but I'm like, ooh, this shit. I'm not even. I'm not speaking a language right now. I need to
Yeah,
get.
but bestie, that's kind of a normal for you though.
What you mean?
Being places where like people are on a different level. Like we've had conversations before where it's just like that's one of the reasons why, you know, Henny come out every now and then and kick it with
Yeah,
you because typically when you're entering spaces, you're super sensitive to the energies and like
yeah,
you're not usually where somebody else is.
yeah. But my thinking is I should just not be there then. You know what I mean? That's how I guess I'm super polarizing
So
when it
that
comes to
sounds
that.
like super antisocial, right? Because if it's like my natural state, is typically on a different state.
I want to do like this. I want to talk like this, one on one, or maybe, or like a more of a deeper conversation.
It's some people who enjoy that. We
Yeah.
always have like
Yeah.
real shit conversations.
Yeah.
Talk about some dumb stuff too here and there, but
Yeah.
but like that's not.
I've realized that though as I've gotten older, like that, like those are the more genuine conversations I want to have. Like I genuinely want to have like more of. But when I get around people that like really ain't on that time and they're not doing that, I feel like either one, I have to kind of almost like code switch a little bit, in a sense. Like I have to like act, I don't know.
So you still looking for your people, basically. It's like I want to have more of these type of conversations, but the people who were active at one point in my life aren't necessarily into these conversations that I want to have more of in my life now.
Yeah. And right now, I'm kind of like acquiring the people that are more into the newer conversations.
So it all shaking out.
Yeah, it is. It's just taking a little time,
Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
It takes a minute.
Yeah.
Find your people.
Yeah.
Gotta find yourself first.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Back to what we was talking about before, with like you still have those gears that you always have. You know what I mean? That are parts of you that can come out and this and that.
It's the story of the wolves, bestie.
Yeah.
Whichever one you feed is the one that grows.
Yeah. But the wolves, did the wolves ever run away altogether? Nah. Sometimes you gotta feed a wolf a little. Here go a little bacon. Got a little meat here and there.
Well, whichever one you feed is gonna be the one that grows.
Yeah.
So you get to decide whether one's gonna be whichever one.
That's actually a good way to get that tatted too.
Oh, I'm getting all your next tats.
Yeah, I'm about to be blasted out here. Feed the right wolf.
I know you got to catch up with the artistry.
I know it. Let me see how long we have been going. Boy, my fucking hip is hurting now.
I know. We gotta get you a setup or something.
A couple more minutes. Oh yeah. I'm eventually gonna like adjust all this, but I like
get a couple of nice chairs or whatever.
I like the candidness for right now. But yeah, but now we definitely covered a lot of cool things for sure. It always gets deep. I always leave these things thinking. You know what I mean?
You're always thinking.
Yeah, I am for sure.
You're always thinking, just like me.
Yep.
That's what we got in common.
So let's leave it off with
stays
that.
Going.
Shy. If you got a kid that's shy, don't think he's because he's scared. He just collecting data, or he or she is just collecting data. Because that's kind of how I was, and I see that in other kids, and I feel like those people are sometimes very smart on the low. You know what I mean? Because they're acquiring everything as opposed to just acting on impulse.
That's also part of the reason for like the social awkwardness and anxiety, because it's like being smart, especially when you know that you're smarter than maybe the people that you're surrounding yourself with, it becomes harder to relate to them. Like I was already fully reading chapter books by the time I started kindergarten.
Okay, Cat Williams.
Nah.
Okay, Cat.
Nah.
Cat over here. Not the. He was reading hella books.
Not the Cat Williams, but I was reading, at a higher level when typically kindergarten, that's when you're learning the alphabet, spell your name, colors, stuff like that. And that causes a divide because I'm not interested in what y'all doing. Even as an adult, it's kind of like I'm not on that anymore.
Yeah.
And there's like a distancing that happens from that. But I think that there are so many different layers to the shyness thing, because you have shy people who are observers. You have shy people who are dealing with also social anxiety. And then you also have a new generation that has been raised on technology and doesn't know how to interface in real life.
That's what they're doing. Yeah.
So there's like so many, because like they're so hooked to their electronics. It's not like they observing the things that's going around on them. They only observing what they scrolling through.
Yeah.
So
very interesting.
So I guess the ultimate word is discernment.
Yeah, knowing what you is.
It always is.
Damn, so interesting. So we're gonna leave it off. Self-awareness. Damn.
Self-awareness, accountability,
Accountability,
discernment.
and discernment. And I had a couple tattoo ideas that I already forgot that I gotta watch this again and forget them because that was pretty good for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yep, I think we'll wrap it up. That was good.
All right,
That was
Vesty.
good. Now I gotta write down a bunch of stuff in my journal and think and all that. Appreciate you though.
Of course.
I want to do this again though.
Let's do it. I mean, we always do. Maybe not for the fans.
I know, right?
But we always do.
For sure.